You know that feeling when you finally pull the trigger on something you've been dreaming about for months, maybe years, and then reality hits you like a truck? Yeah, that was me when I made the switch from console to PC gaming. I thought I knew what I was getting into. I watched the build videos, I read the forums, I even memorized the specs on half the graphics cards on the market. But nobody, and I mean nobody, warned me about the real stuff that happens when you cross over to the PC master race. I was that guy who lived and breathed console gaming for over a decade. PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, you name it. Pop in a disc, press a button, boom, you're gaming. Simple, clean, predictable. My biggest worry was whether my controller had enough battery life to finish a boss fight. Life was good, life was easy, life was blissfully ignorant. Then I got curious. You know how it starts, right? One innocent YouTube recommendation about frame rates, then another about mod support, then suddenly you're 3 hours deep into PC part picker lists at 2 a.m. questioning every life choice you've ever made. The seed was planted and there was no going back. So I saved up, did my research, pulled the trigger on what I thought was a solid mid-range setup. Nothing crazy, just enough to run the games I wanted at settings that would make my console friends jealous. I was ready to ascend, ready to join the ranks of the enlightened, ready to experience gaming the way it was meant to be experienced. But here's the thing, they don't tell you in those glossy PC Master Race memes. The transition isn't just about better graphics or higher frame rates. It's not even about the mods or the massive game libraries. No, the real switch, the one that changes everything, goes way deeper than that. Because the moment you boot up your first PC game, you realize you've entered a completely different world with its own rules, its own problems, and its own weird culture that nobody prepared you for. And I'm not talking about learning keyboard and mouse controls or figuring out graphics settings. I'm talking about the stuff that happens after the honeymoon phase ends and you're left staring at your setup, wondering what you've gotten yourself into. From the moment I installed my first game, I knew something was different. Not just better or worse, but fundamentally different in ways I never expected. And over the next few months, I discovered that switching from console to PC isn't just changing platforms, it's like moving to a foreign country where everyone speaks the same language but follows completely different social norms. The first reality check came when I tried to just launch a game and play. Sounds simple, right? On console, you hit the power button, select your game, and you're in. But on PC, oh boy, that's just the beginning of your journey. First, you've got to pick a launcher. Steam, Epic, GOG, Origin, Ubisoft Connect, Battle.net, and about 17 others I'd never heard of. Each one demanding its own account, its own updates, its own special way of doing things. Then comes the settings menu. Console games give you maybe brightness and volume sliders if you're lucky. PC games hit you with a wall of options that looks like a NASA control panel. Anti-aliasing, anisotropic filtering, ambient occlusion, tessellation, motion blur, depth of field. Half of these words didn't exist in my vocabulary a week ago, and now I'm supposed to know the difference between FXAA and MSAA, like it's common knowledge. And don't even get me started on the optimization rabbit hole. You'd think a game would just run at the settings it's supposed to run at. But no, every single game becomes a science experiment. You spend more time in the graphics menu than actually playing, tweaking this slider, adjusting that setting, alt-tabbing out to check forums, because your frame rate dropped to 45 in one specific area, and apparently that's unacceptable now. But the weirdest part wasn't the technical stuff, it was the community. Console gamers complain about lag or maybe a broken game here and there. PC gamers turn everything into a philosophical debate. Someone's always arguing about whether you need 144 frames per second, or if 120 is good enough, or why anyone would play at anything below 1440p resolution, or whether ray tracing is worth the performance hit. I joined a Discord server for one of my favourite games, thinking I'd find people to play with. Instead, I found people comparing their PC specs like they were trading cards, arguing about which brand of thermal paste gives you the best temperatures, and sharing screenshots of their frame rate counters like they'd just discovered fire. The strangest part was realizing that I was becoming one of them. Slowly but surely, I started caring about things that would have seemed completely insane to me 6 months earlier. I found myself checking my GPU temperatures during loading screens, getting genuinely upset when a game defaulted to medium settings instead of high, and bookmarking optimization guides for games I hadn't even bought yet. So here I am, a year and a half later, staring at my setup that's been upgraded 3 times, with more RGB than a nightclub and enough monitoring software to run a small data center. My Steam library has more unplayed games than I own total on console. I know the difference between DDR4 and DDR5 RAM timings, and I genuinely get excited about driver updates. Would I go back? Honestly, probably not. The gaming experience is incredible when everything works, and there's something deeply satisfying about tweaking your system to perfection. But nobody warned me that switching to PC wasn't just about getting better performance, it was about joining a completely different culture, one where you become obsessed with numbers you never knew existed and spend more time optimizing than actually playing. The console to PC switch changes you in ways you don't expect. You start as someone who just wants to play games, and somehow you end up as someone who spends 20 minutes adjusting graphic settings for the perfect balance between visual fidelity and frame rate stability. And the weirdest part, you'll love every frustrating, expensive, time-consuming minute of it. If you're thinking about making the switch, just know what you're really signing up for. It's not just a hardware upgrade, it's a lifestyle change. Welcome to the rabbit hole. Thanks for watching. Until next time.